Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're sharing a story about a discovery that sparks suspicion, unravels secrets, and tests the very foundation of a marriage. A pregnant wife found a bracelet in his car. What the millionaire said next made her question everything. A swirl of emotions coursed through Isabella Martin the moment she saw that glimmering, unfamiliar bracelet tucked beneath the passenger seat of her husband's Bentley. She was on her way to the doctor's office for a checkup, carrying the promise of new life in her belly, when her entire reality shifted in an instant. As the wife of Andrew Martin, a self-made millionaire known for his lofty business deals and impeccable reputation, she was accustomed to lavish surprises, but never like this. The delicate jewelry piece felt like a dagger to her heart, raising questions no pregnant woman should have to ask, especially about the man she thought she knew best. Isabella Martin had been married to Andrew for nearly 4 years. Their relationship started like a fairy tale, with Andrew's success story gracing local newspapers and even once mentioned in Forbes's Top 30 Under 30 to Watch. He had soared to millionaire status before he turned 30, thanks to a brilliant software development venture that revolutionized real estate analytics. Isabella was drawn to his warmth and grounded attitude. Despite his soaring ambitions, everyone said the two of them belonged together. At 8 months pregnant, Isabella often felt short of breath. On this particular morning, Andrew had taken a ride-sharing service downtown for a meeting, leaving his Bentley in the driveway so Isabella could drive herself to her prenatal appointment. However, as she got settled in the driver's seat, something slid under her foot. She leaned down to retrieve it, expecting maybe a pen or a coin. Her heart sank to find a slender silver bracelet, the kind she'd never seen before. It wasn't her style. She had never owned a piece with such intricate swirling designs etched around the band. Her immediate reaction was confusion. Andrew was known to spoil her with gifts: Tiffany necklaces, Cartier earrings, each carefully chosen for her taste. This was different, old-fashioned, almost antique, and definitely not intended for her. A cold flush prickled at her skin. She felt unsettled and yet refused to jump to conclusions. Rationally, it could be a client's misplaced jewelry. Maybe someone from Andrew's office had borrowed the car? But her heart hammered with an urgency that had nothing to do with reason. The bracelet radiated a sense of betrayal she couldn't shake. Images flooded her mind. Andrew laughing with a mysterious woman, whispering over dinner at an exclusive club, or sharing a private moment while traveling. She recalled an awkward phone call last week when Andrew ended it abruptly the moment she walked into the room. At the time, she brushed it off as business confidentiality. Now, she wasn't so sure. Pregnant, hormonal, and thoroughly shaken, she looked at her round belly in the rear-view mirror and fought off tears. Her baby needed her to be strong, but anxiety churned within. The drive to the doctor's office turned into a trial of mental endurance as she wrestled with every suspicion taking shape inside her. At the prenatal clinic, Isabella hardly registered the usual hustle of expectant mothers flipping through magazines or tapping on their phones. She managed a polite smile at the receptionist who recognized her from previous visits. But inside, she was consumed by one question: whose bracelet was it? By the time her obstetrician, Dr. Fiona Caldwell, ushered her in, Isabella was trembling. Dr. Caldwell was a composed woman of 50 with sharp eyes yet a kind voice. After the routine weight check and belly measurement, the doctor noticed Isabella's unusual tension. "Is everything all right at home?" Dr. Caldwell asked gently. Isabella hesitated. Could she confide in the doctor about her fears? She chose to hold back, not wanting to muddy the waters with speculation. Just the normal nerves, she lied, forcing a wry smile. "Everything's fine. You can always talk to me if you need anything," Dr. Caldwell said, scribbling notes on Isabella's file. Isabella nodded, tears dangerously close. The checkup concluded normally, and Isabella drove home feeling more uncertain than ever. She stared at the bracelet beside her in the passenger seat, swallowing her mounting panic. 1,000 scenarios played out in her mind. She tried to quell her suspicions with logic. Andrew might have given someone a lift, maybe an employee like his assistant Michelle. But Andrew rarely let anyone but her inside this particular car, protective of its pristine interior. And he had never allowed employees or acquaintances to treat it as a taxi. When Andrew finally returned that evening, Isabella was waiting in the living room, half coiled in fear, half burning with adrenaline. The sumptuous interior of their modern villa in Los Angeles, with its open-plan design and floor-to-ceiling windows, felt cold and lifeless. The sun was just dipping below the skyline, casting elongated shadows across the polished marble floor. Andrew entered with a familiar energy. His tie loosened, jacket slung over one arm. Usually, Isabella would rise to greet him with a kiss. Now, she remained seated, the bracelet resting on the coffee table. "Hey darling," he said, stepping forward. He stopped short when he saw the expression on her face. "Is something wrong?" Isabella picked up the bracelet and held it out. She watched as Andrew's face registered confusion. Then his eyes flared in recognition, or was it panic? "Where'd you get that?" he asked. "I found it, in your Bentley, this morning." Silence. Andrew's eyebrows knit together. "In my Bentley?" He sat on the couch across from her, leaving a gulf between them. "Yes," Isabella said, her voice trembling. "I don't own this. Do you want to explain?" Andrew exhaled slowly, leaning his forearms on his knees. "Bella, it's not what you think." He glanced at her stomach, and his features softened. "Look, I can see you're upset. But you have to believe me. This has nothing to do with another woman. Who does it belong to then?" I'm not sure," Andrew admitted. "Could it be Michelle's? Or, hold on." He took the bracelet, turning it over in his hand as though looking for an inscription. "I need to think. I might have given a ride to my cousin Sophia last week after a fundraiser. She was wearing some kind of antique bracelet. I remember seeing it and complimenting her on it. She'd inherited it from our grandmother. This might be hers." Isabella eyed him wearily. Andrew had a large extended family scattered across various social circles. Sofia Delgado was one of his closest relatives, a cousin he grew up with who'd recently moved to Los Angeles. Isabella didn't know her intimately but had met her enough times to recognize she and Andrew shared a strong bond. "Almost like siblings. And you didn't realize it was under the seat?" Isabella pressed. Andrew shook his head. "I've been busy. I rarely drive that car myself. You know how my schedule's been." It's possible it dropped off her wrist and neither of us noticed. Relief warred with lingering doubt in Isabella's mind. The explanation seemed plausible, especially if it was a piece of old family jewelry. Still, something in Andrew's voice felt guarded, like there was more he wasn't saying. Yet, she had no concrete reason to doubt him if he was referencing Sophia. After a long moment, Andrew reached for her hands. "Bella, you have to trust me. I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize what we have. You and this baby mean everything to me." She let him pull her into an embrace. Inhaling his familiar cologne, she wanted desperately to believe him. Her heart ached to trust that the father of her child wouldn't betray her. Isabella retreated to the bedroom to rest, her doctor's words about managing stress echoing in her mind. She stretched out on the plush bed, recalling the early days of their romance. They had first met at a charity gala hosted by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Seattle. Andrew's philanthropic streak had led him to invest heavily in educational programs across underprivileged neighborhoods. Isabella, freshly out of grad school and a volunteer at the event, had been star-struck by the swirl of powerful attendees. Warren Buffett had made a brief appearance. So did other notable figures. But it was Andrew's kindness, not his status, that drew her in. She remembered their first real conversation. He was guiding a group of donors through a new coding scholarship program. Isabella was handling check-in for the event. Their eyes locked, and Andrew ended up ignoring the rest of his group to chat with her for nearly an hour. He was direct, unabashedly curious about her background in social work and her dreams of establishing community centers. At the end of that night, he asked if he could call her. She'd accepted without hesitation. Their love was a whirlwind. Expensive dates at Michelin-starred restaurants contrasted with volunteering weekends at local shelters. Andrew adored the world of finance, technology, and strategic investments, but he also cherished quiet walks on the beach. Soon, they were traveling abroad, forging partnerships in Europe, visiting famous museums, and supporting charitable causes. No one was surprised when he proposed after just a year of dating. Their wedding was small but elegant, only family and close friends, under the summer sun in Lake Tahoe. Yet, the press latched on to their union, painting Andrew as a rare breed of humble tech millionaire and Isabella as the radiant philanthropic partner. Isabella's insecurities about being overshadowed by Andrew's success never fully vanished, though he always tried to reassure her that she was his equal partner, not a trophy. Now, lying in bed, that memory of their shared vows threatened to become stained. She wanted to believe in Andrew's innocence, but her instincts, especially pregnant instincts, kept pricking at her mind. Why would Sophia say nothing if she lost such a precious heirloom? Over the next week, Isabella tried to push the bracelet incident aside. Andrew insisted he had texted Sophia about the missing jewelry. But according to him, she was traveling to Mexico for a real estate development conference and hadn't responded. He told Isabella that once Sophia returned, she would confirm it was hers, and they'd be done with the matter. Yet, Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She noticed Andrew working even later than usual. Sometimes he stepped outside to take phone calls, speaking too low for her to overhear. If she approached him, he'd quickly wrap up and pretend nothing had happened. On 2 occasions, she woke in the middle of the night to find him pacing in the living room, phone in hand, a troubled expression on his face. One Sunday afternoon, she confided in her best friend, Natalie Parker. Natalie was a sharp attorney who practiced family law in Los Angeles. She knew the darkest sides of relationships, having represented several high-profile divorces. When Isabella told her about the bracelet and Andrew's explanation, Natalie's reaction was concerned yet careful. "It could be nothing," Natalie said, sipping a latte at the patio of a chic cafe in Santa Monica. "But you know I always say, trust your gut. If Andrew is hiding something, you have every right to ask questions. Have you tried calling Sophia yourself?" Isabella shook her head. "I don't want to seem paranoid. What if Andrew's telling the truth? But what if he's not?" Natalie pressed. "Listen, I'm not telling you to prepare for divorce court, but you're about to have a child. You need stability, truth, and trust. Don't stay silent if you feel uneasy." That evening, Isabella waited for Andrew to come home from a business dinner. She'd made a simple supper. Her appetite had been erratic, but she wanted to keep up appearances of normalcy. Andrew looked exhausted, rolling up his sleeves as he entered the kitchen. "Bella, I have some big announcements coming up with the company," he began, rummaging for water in the fridge. "We're on the verge of a huge merger with a real estate analytics firm in Europe. It's all hush-hush for now, but the legal documents are monstrous. That's why I've been so distracted." Isabella mustered a polite nod, placing a plate of pasta on the counter for him. "Have you heard from Sophia yet?" Andrew hesitated, then shook his head. "Still nothing, but you know how it is with her. She goes off the grid for days." A knot formed in Isabella's stomach. She knew Sophia to be adventurous but never irresponsible. She reached for her phone and found Sophia's number. Andrew immediately froze. "Bella, really? She might still be out of the country. Don't stress yourself." Ignoring him, Isabella pressed the call button. After a few rings, the line clicked, and a recorded voice announced the call could not be completed as dialed. Possibly no service in whatever part of Mexico Sophia was in. That answered nothing. "See," Andrew said gently, removing the phone from her hand. "We'll ask her when she's back." Isabella nodded, but her lingering anxiety only deepened. Days turned into another week, and still no word from Sophia. Even the family's group chat, where Sophia occasionally posted photos of exotic destinations, remained silent. Isabella debated her next move. On one hand, confronting Andrew constantly might erode their relationship further, especially if he was truly innocent. On the other, she couldn't sit idly by, stewing in uncertainty. After wrestling with her conscience, she decided to hire a private investigator. It wasn't an easy choice, in fact. She felt almost guilty for betraying Andrew's trust in this manner. But the stakes were high. She was bringing a child into the world. If there were secrets, she needed to know before it was too late. She met Harvey Wilkins, a discreet and recommended detective, in a quiet cafe near Brentwood, a spry man in his 50s. Harvey had a fatherly aura that made Isabella feel safe. "I'm not accusing my husband of anything specific," she explained, hands wrapped around a cup of herbal tea. "I just need to know if there's something going on, another woman, or something else. He's changed." She didn't elaborate on the bracelet, just gave Harvey enough details for him to start quietly observing Andrew's movements. Harvey listened attentively. "I understand. I'll be discreet. Let's start small, monitoring his public comings and goings, seeing who he meets. If there's anything suspicious, we'll dig deeper." Isabella agreed, simultaneously relieved and nauseous about crossing this line. She had never pictured herself in a scenario like this, especially not while she was pregnant with the man she loved. While Harvey began his surveillance, Isabella tried to keep life normal. She and Andrew attended a high society fundraiser in Beverly Hills. It was a lavish event at the Four Seasons Hotel, featuring champagne fountains and an orchestral quartet. The glitz and glamour felt suffocating to Isabella, who was more concerned about her swollen ankles and the possibility of running into more hidden secrets. Midway through the evening, a middle-aged woman with carefully styled hair approached Isabella. "Hello dear, you must be Isabella. I'm Gloria Weller, Richard Weller's wife. I've heard so many wonderful things about you. Isabella forced a polite smile. She recognized the name. Richard Weller was a major investor in one of Andrew's companies. It's lovely to meet you, she said, scanning the crowd. Andrew was several feet away, talking animatedly with another group of business moguls. Gloria lowered her voice conspiratorially. I don't mean to pry, but is everything all right with you and Andrew? I only ask because I saw him having a pretty intense conversation with a young woman at the Ritz-Carlton lounge 2 nights ago. He seemed, well, let's just say they looked quite engrossed in each other. Isabella's chest constricted. You sure it was Andrew? Gloria shrugged apologetically. I'm not blind, dear. I've known Andrew for some time. Perhaps it was business, but they seemed very familiar. He left rather abruptly when he noticed me. A swirl of emotion shot through Isabella. She tried to appear calm. Thank you for letting me know. I'm sure it was work-related. Andrew's got a lot on his plate. Gloria gave an understanding nod. I hope so. You're both such a lovely couple. Then she drifted away to mingle. Isabella's knees felt weak. She excused herself to the restroom, where she splashed water on her face. If Andrew was having secret meetings with a mysterious young woman, how did that tie in with the bracelet? Was it truly Sophia's, or had he lied? She stared in the mirror, searching her reflection for a sense of clarity. All she found was a pregnant woman drowning in doubt. The following morning, Isabella received a text from Harvey. We need to meet. Found something. Please call. Heart pounding. She dialed immediately. Harvey's voice was measured, not wanting to startle her. They arranged to meet at his office, an unassuming suite above a quiet row of shops in Culver City. Harvey led her into a dimly lit room lined with filing cabinets. He motioned for her to sit. I've been tracking Andrew's daily routine. He's mostly at work, in meetings, or traveling to high-end restaurants, likely for business lunches and dinners. Nothing out of the ordinary for a high-profile CEO. But 2 nights ago, he did go to the Ritz-Carlton downtown. As someone apparently reported to you, he met with a woman in the lounge. I managed to retrieve some security footage. Harvey slid his laptop across the desk. The footage showed Andrew at a table with an elegant brunette. They leaned close, their heads nearly touching. Andrew looked tense. At one point, the woman reached across, placing her hand over his. The video had no audio, but the gestures spoke volumes. Andrew never tried to remove her hand. Instead, he looked resigned, or maybe conflicted. Isabella's eyes burned. Who is she? Harvey cleared his throat. I did some digging. Her name is Evelyn Carter, a journalist who used to work for the Los Angeles Times. She's now a freelance investigative writer. She's known to dig up stories on wealthy individuals, especially if there's scandal involved. Isabella's heart hammered. Scandal? My husband hates negative press. Why would he meet her? Harvey shrugged. Could be blackmail, or maybe she's threatening to publish something. It's not uncommon for journalists to push for hush money if they've discovered skeletons in a millionaire's closet. He paused, letting the gravity settle in. But it could also be personal. I'm not sure yet. They were spotted again last night in a private booth at the same lounge. He might be trying to negotiate with her off the record. Tears gathered in Isabella's eyes. Is there any indication that they're intimate? I have no proof of that, Harvey said. All I know is that they're meeting in secret. It's definitely clandestine. Isabella's mind spun. Had Andrew fathered a child with Evelyn in the past? Was he paying her off to keep quiet? Was the antique bracelet actually Evelyn's? The possibilities swirled like a storm. She thanked Harvey, telling him to continue investigating. Her baby kicked as she walked back to the car, reminding her that time was running short. She had to uncover the truth before the stress of all this threatened her health or that of her child. That evening, Isabella confronted Andrew again, her voice trembling with hurt. I know about Evelyn Carter. Andrew's face turned white. What do you mean? I know you've been meeting her at the Ritz-Carlton. Why all the secrecy? Andrew? Who is she to you? He ran a hand over his face, exhaling sharply. So you hired someone to follow me? She didn't deny it, ignoring the guilt that threatened to surface. You left me no choice. I'm pregnant, and I'm terrified. Talk to me. Andrew sank into the nearest chair, his expression a blend of sorrow and frustration. Evelyn approached me a few weeks ago. She claimed to have damaging information about my father's business dealings years ago. Things that could implicate me too. She threatened to go public if I didn't give her an exclusive interview. Or maybe some hush money. I've been trying to handle it quietly. What kind of information? Isabella asked, barely able to steady her breathing. Andrew hesitated. My father was involved in some shady real estate acquisitions decades ago. My seed money for my company partially came from him. If Evelyn makes it look like my business was built on dirty money, it could ruin everything, my reputation, our finances, future deals. I've been meeting with her to see if I can convince her there's no story. Or if necessary, to buy her silence. Tears welled up in Isabella's eyes. Why couldn't you just tell me? Did you think I wouldn't understand? Or that I'd judge you? He looked at her, eyes filled with shame. I didn't want to burden you. Especially when you're pregnant. I thought I could fix this on my own. As for the bracelet, I truly believed it belonged to Sophia. But now, I'm not so sure. Maybe Evelyn left it in the car when she cornered me after a meeting? She followed me to the parking garage once. I don't know. Everything's been a blur. Isabella stood in stunned silence. Part of her felt relief that Andrew's secrecy might not be tied to a romantic affair. Yet, the betrayal of trust stung just as deeply. You should have let me in, she whispered. I'm your wife. Andrew reached for her hand, eyes brimming with regret. I know, and I'm sorry. I swear there's nothing between me and Evelyn in that way. She's persistent, manipulative, and I've made the mistake of dealing with her alone. Just when Isabella thought the situation couldn't grow more complicated, Sofia Delgado reappeared. One afternoon, the doorbell rang, and there she stood, elegant as ever, wearing designer sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. Her cheeks glowed with a sun-kissed tan. Bella, it's been too long, Sophia exclaimed, air-kissing Isabella's cheeks. I've been overseas and completely off the grid. How are you? My goodness, you're about to pop any moment now. Isabella smiled tersely, ushering her inside. We've been trying to reach you. Andrew thought you lost your bracelet in his Bentley. Is it yours? Sophia scrunched her brow. Bracelet? I only wore one in Mexico. My turquoise bangle. Definitely not an antique silver piece. She shrugged. Sorry, that wasn't me. Isabella's heart sank. So Andrew's initial story was wrong. Whether it was a genuine misunderstanding or a cover-up, it meant the bracelet truly belonged to someone else, perhaps Evelyn. Sophia seemed unaware of the tension. She prattled on about her travels, the developments she was scouting for her next real estate project. Isabella's mind was elsewhere, spinning the new revelation into the mosaic of questions that plagued her. Later that night, Isabella confronted Andrew with Sophia's words. He closed his eyes, massaging his temples. Then Evelyn must have left it. She confronted me in the car park a few weeks ago. The only time she was near my Bentley. She must have dropped it without me realizing. Isabella swallowed her relief and heartbreak in equal measure. Yes, it meant Andrew wasn't cheating with some unknown woman. But it confirmed he'd known Evelyn was near his car. You lied, Isabella said quietly, tears pressing at the corners of her eyes. You said it was probably Sophia's. The truth is, you suspected Evelyn, didn't you? Andrew hung his head. I didn't want to drag you into this. I hoped I could fix everything before you found out. I was scared you'd never look at me the same if you knew my father's money might have been tainted. I wasn't sure how far Evelyn would go. I panicked. I made a terrible call. The next morning, Isabella woke up with an ache in her lower back and a swirl of dread in her heart. The baby was due in a matter of weeks, and stress was taking its toll. She decided to confront Evelyn head-on. If Andrew wouldn't solve this quickly, Isabella had to protect her family herself. It wasn't hard to find Evelyn's contact information. She had a professional website listing her freelance journalist services. Isabella, using her maiden name to remain anonymous, sent an email requesting a meeting to discuss a potential investigative piece. Within hours, Evelyn replied, suggesting a coffee shop near West Hollywood. Isabella arrived early, scanning the cafe's patrons. Evelyn entered shortly after, wearing a sleek blouse and skirt, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She was striking, with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Miss Gonzalez? Evelyn asked, referencing Isabella's fabricated name. Yes, Isabella responded, gesturing to the seat across from her. As soon as Evelyn sat, Isabella removed her sunglasses. I'm actually Isabella Martin, Andrew's wife. Evelyn's eyes flared in surprise. But she quickly recovered. Well, this is unexpected. What do you want? Isabella held up the bracelet, letting it dangle between her fingers. Is this yours? Evelyn studied it with mild amusement. Ah, so that's where it went. Yes, it's a family heirloom. I wondered where it slipped off. Thank you for returning it. She extended her hand, but Isabella pulled the bracelet back. No, not until you stop this madness. My husband told me what you're doing, threatening to publish dirt on his father. Why? Evelyn folded her arms, leaning back in the chair. Because Andrew's father, Lloyd Martin, Ruined my family. You might have heard the name Carter in passing. Or maybe you haven't. My grandfather lost everything when Lloyd engaged in a predatory deal, flipping land in Sacramento. We ended up in poverty. My father was an alcoholic who died young. Driven by despair, I vowed I'd get justice someday. Isabella's throat tightened. She had never known the specifics of Andrew's father's business ventures, only that he was a controversial figure who passed away years ago. You're blaming Andrew for something his father did decades ago? Evelyn's jaw set. He benefited from those dirty deals. My father tried to dispute it in court, but the Martins' money and power silenced him. Now Andrew's a golden boy. Everyone loves him. Well, I'm going to expose the real truth about where his money originated. Isabella's heart pounded, but Andrew was a child then. He had no say in his father's actions. That may be so, Evelyn conceded, but he inherited the spoils. The public should know, unless he's willing to compensate the Carter family for what we lost. Blackmail, Isabella hissed. Evelyn shrugged, unrepentant. Call it restitution. He can throw money at philanthropic causes but can't right the wrong done to my family? Hypocritical, don't you think? Isabella's eyes burned with tears. You're destroying an innocent man's life. If you want restitution, file a legal claim. Don't do this under the table. Legal claims cost money, time, and a mountain of proof. Evelyn replied coolly. Andrew prefers hush-hush deals. Or so I thought, but he's waffling. I'll give him one more week to decide. Then I publish. She rose, a predatory confidence radiating from her. Enjoy the bracelet, or toss it in the ocean. It's worthless to me now. With that, Evelyn glided out of the cafe, leaving Isabella trembling. She pressed a hand to her belly, silently apologizing to her unborn child for all this turmoil. Isabella drove home, mind racing. Andrew was pacing in the foyer when she walked in. The moment he saw her pale face, he rushed forward. What happened? Did you actually meet Evelyn? Yes, Isabella said quietly and recounted every word. Andrew looked shaken. He'd known Evelyn was after money, but hearing the full story of her family's downfall was sobering. All this time, I thought she was just trying to exploit my father's past. I didn't realize there was a personal history of tragedy. Andrew's voice was thick with guilt. I can't pretend it doesn't matter. But blackmail, we can't encourage that. They spent a sleepless night discussing options. Andrew's lawyers argued that paying Evelyn off would only embolden her to demand more in the future. They advised a preemptive legal strategy, challenging Evelyn's claims, but Andrew worried a public lawsuit would create a media circus, harming his upcoming merger and possibly tarnishing his philanthropic image. Meanwhile, Isabella tried to find a moral stance. Was it so wrong to pay Evelyn a settlement if it truly did restore what her family lost? The blackmail angle was ugly, but maybe it could bring closure to Evelyn. Yet, the principle of enabling extortion felt wrong. As the days dragged on, Isabella's blood pressure began to rise. Dr. Caldwell lectured her about reducing stress. She was dangerously close to hypertension, which could harm the baby. Natalie Parker, her best friend, expressed concern too, urging Isabella to put her health first. Andrew tried to lighten the load. He withdrew from a few business engagements, canceled some events. They spent more quiet evenings at home preparing the nursery. The fleeting moments of peace came when they assembled the crib, folded tiny baby clothes, and chose lullabies, but the shadow of Evelyn Carter's threat loomed over them. One late evening, Andrew discovered Isabella in the nursery, tears streaming down her face as she held a small pair of socks. I'm so scared, she whispered. Our baby deserves a calm, loving environment, but we're sitting on a powder keg. He knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. I'll handle it, I swear, no matter what it takes. I'll make sure you and our child are safe and happy. We'll come out of this storm stronger. Isabella wanted to believe him, but the fear that something irreparable might shatter their family lingered in her thoughts. The final showdown arrived when Evelyn Carter sent a formal email to Andrew's office and Andrew's chief legal advisor. It was laced with righteous indignation, listing references to old legal documents, receipts, and property records from Lloyd Martin's dealings. Evelyn threatened to publish a full exposé on a major online platform if Andrew did not agree to a settlement of $2 million within 48 hours. Andrew's lawyers were furious. We need to file an immediate restraining order. Defamation suit, everything, they insisted. Andrew hesitated, torn between legal aggression and the potential to settle quietly. The 48-hour clock was ticking. Meanwhile, Isabella hovered in a state of near panic, certain the stress would trigger premature labor. In desperation, she called a family friend, Judge Rosalind Hayes, a retired circuit court judge who had known Andrew's mother for years. Judge Hayes listened patiently as Isabella poured out the entire story. "You have two major concerns here," the judge said kindly. "One is legal, the other is moral. Legally, if she's blackmailing you with information that may or may not be accurate, you have grounds for legal recourse. But morally, if her family truly suffered, some restitution might be the right thing to do. However, it must be done properly. You don't want to set a precedent for hush money. This can be mediated officially." Andrew agreed to a mediation process. Albeit with immense reluctance, Evelyn accepted, likely sensing that an official settlement might be her best bet. The next morning, both parties convened at a lawyer's office in downtown LA. Isabella sat by Andrew's side, feeling every muscle tense as Evelyn walked in with her own attorney. The mediator, a calm woman named Margaret Reynolds, opened the session. "Today, we aim to settle claims regarding alleged losses suffered by the Carter family due to the actions of Lloyd Martin in real estate acquisitions. We also address Miss Carter's threat to expose alleged wrongdoing by Andrew Martin." Evelyn laid out her evidence, describing how Lloyd Martin had manipulated local officials to push through a property deal that eventually forced multiple families into foreclosure. She had documents showing how those profits funded Andrew's earliest business investments. Andrew didn't deny that money from his father helped him in the beginning, though he had since expanded far beyond that initial infusion of capital. The mediator eventually guided both parties to consider a fair settlement, factoring in interest and the intangible damages to the Carter family. Andrew, resisting any suggestion he was morally culpable, still recognized the Carters' plight. Ultimately, a settlement was proposed, a structured payment that would aid any Carter descendants in regaining financial stability. It wasn't an admission of wrongdoing on Andrew's part but a gesture of goodwill to rectify past harm. Evelyn's attorney conferred with her. Isabella watched, heart-pounding. Finally, Evelyn gave a curt nod. She would drop the exposé, return the bracelet, and sign a binding agreement not to publish any claims unless new evidence of intentional wrongdoing surfaced. The tension in the room was palpable. Isabella could hardly breathe. She felt relief, but also sadness that such a tragedy had festered so long. For Evelyn, it was closure. For Andrew, it was a reckoning with his father's legacy. When the agreement was signed, Evelyn paused at the door. She looked at Isabella, who was quietly sitting with a hand on her pregnant belly. "You're lucky your husband wants to do the right thing," Evelyn said softly. "I still think the world deserves to know. But this is better than nothing." Isabella nodded, tears brimming. "I'm sorry for your loss. Truly, I hope this helps you find peace." In the days following the tense mediation, a fragile sense of calm settled over Isabella and Andrew's household. Though the agreement with Evelyn Carter had been signed and sealed, effectively ensuring her silence, both spouses felt as though they were still tiptoeing on eggshells, half expecting another crisis to erupt at any moment. Yet, as each sunrise came and went without incident, the relief gradually grew stronger. A confidentiality clause safeguarded the settlement, keeping rumors of hush money at bay. Only their attorneys and Judge Rosalind Hayes knew the precise details of the agreement. Andrew's corporate team proceeded with caution, finalizing legal paperwork that would pave the way for his planned merger with a European real estate analytics firm. Meanwhile, Isabella observed everything quietly, sitting in on more meetings than usual, just to be near him. She no longer wanted to be shut out of any part of his world. Despite lingering tension, life at home began to slip into a gentler rhythm. Isabella's belly, now just a few weeks shy of her due date, was the constant focus of Andrew's attention. He insisted on taking her to each prenatal appointment himself, determined to prove that nothing was more important than his family. Although the turbulence with Evelyn had bruised their trust, these small daily acts of devotion began to mend the invisible rifts. Sophia, blissfully unaware of the worst of the ordeal, swung by the house one afternoon. She brought homemade soup and a pile of comedic DVDs, declaring that laughter was the best medicine for an anxious mom to be. Over an early dinner, Sophia did notice Andrew's subdued manner and Isabella's lingering weariness. Although she asked gentle questions, neither offered more than vague hints about recent stress, promising to fill her in when the time was right. Sophia, gracious as ever, shifted the conversation to baby names and nursery decor. Watching her cousin's bright smile, Andrew felt a pang of gratitude that the settlement remained a secret. He didn't want anyone else in the family carrying this burden. Isabella's best friend, Natalie Parker, also became a staple visitor. Having served as their confidant and informal legal guide, she was now the friend who ensured Isabella was resting enough. Some nights she dropped by with takeout and thick law books, half joking that the baby was going to be born reciting contract clauses. Natalie's dry humor helped Isabella decompress, and her mere presence served as a reminder that not every legal battle needed to be fought alone. Meanwhile, Evelyn Carter faded into the background. According to Andrew's private investigator, Harvey Wilkins, she had diverted her attention to a new investigative piece outside of Los Angeles. The hush money rumor never broke in the press. For the Carter family, the settlement funds meant tangible hope, an end to old debts and a stepping stone toward a more stable future. Though deeply scarred by Lloyd Martin's past dealings, Evelyn appeared to accept that her quest for justice had reached its most realistic conclusion. At home, Andrew threw himself into final preparations for the baby. Each evening, he and Isabella spent an hour reorganizing the nursery, color-coding onesies, testing the rocker's lullaby feature, and triple-checking every detail of the crib's assembly. They laughed over how a single tiny person could require so much equipment and how, in spite of their wealth, the simplest items, like a well-stitched blanket or a sturdy rocking chair, brought the most peace of mind. In those hushed twilight hours, when Andrew and Isabella would pause in the half-lit nursery, they often felt the weight of recent events pressing at the edges of their thoughts. Yet, the sight of the baby's empty crib kindled a shared determination. They had to keep moving forward. Together, the cost of betrayal and secrets had been far too steep already. Still, they made room for genuine hope. While Andrew's philanthropic image remained unsullied in the public eye, it was the private lessons he and Isabella took to heart that money could not buy trust. And that real love meant staying vulnerable. Even when fears loomed, with each passing day, they learned anew that crises, like the storm they had just weathered, could galvanize a marriage if both partners worked to keep honesty alive. In one of their quieter moments, Isabella reflected on all that had transpired. There had been nights of heartache, unspoken suspicions, raw confrontations, and ultimately, a moral crossroads where they chose empathy and transparency. Yet, as she rested her hand on her swollen abdomen, feeling the gentle kicks from within, she sensed that this harrowing chapter might actually be preparing them for parenthood. Teaching them that protecting something precious often demands more than personal pride, it demands sacrifice. Understanding, and unwavering unity, she and Andrew sat on the nursery floor one evening, backs against the wall, fingers loosely intertwined. "We've come such a long way," she murmured, her voice thick with emotions she could barely articulate. Andrew responded with a soft, grateful smile. In that moment, Isabella grasped that the greatest test of love wasn't how elegantly two people handled success, but how steadfastly they held onto each other when confronted by their darkest truths. And so, a new dawn of possibility broke upon their household. The fear had not vanished entirely, but with each strengthening heartbeat of the child within her, Isabella felt they were forging a deeper bond than ever before, one tempered by fire, yet radiant in its resolve to move forward. At 2 o'clock in the morning, only a few days after the settlement documents were signed, Isabella bolted upright in bed. A sharp, radiating pain rippled through her abdomen. For a moment, she was unsure if she had dreamed it, but then another wave surged, confirming her greatest suspicion: the baby was coming early. Her breath caught as she fumbled to switch on the bedside lamp. The warmth of Andrew's body beside her offered little reassurance when she saw how much the contraction forced her to double over. "Andrew," she hissed through clenched teeth, shaking his shoulder, "wake up, I think it's time." He stirred, momentarily disoriented, until he registered the panic etched into her face. Launching out of bed, he scrambled to pull on the nearest clothes. Heart pounding, he tucked his phone into his pocket and snatched up the car keys. Isabella, legs trembling, tried to pace her breathing just as the birthing class had taught her. He guided her gently down the staircase, insisting she lean on him with every step. Outside, the night was unusually still and cold for Los Angeles. The hush felt both eerie and surreal. The city lights shimmered, but Isabella had no time to admire them. A fresh contraction made her grip Andrew's arm so tightly he almost dropped the keys. His frantic yet tender demeanor reminded her of the early days of their relationship. How protective he'd been from the start, despite everything they'd gone through. In this life-altering moment, there was no one she'd trust more. They sped down deserted streets to Cedar-Sinai Medical Center, Andrew tossing occasional glances at his wife. offering words of encouragement even as his own voice shook. By the time they reached the maternity ward, Isabella was drenched in sweat. Nurses in pastel scrubs hurried over with a wheelchair, whisking her away to a private delivery room. Amid the bright overhead lights and the hum of monitors, Isabella fought to control each contraction, focusing on her breathing the way Dr. Caldwell had instructed. Andrew clung to her hand, stroking her damp hair away from her face. His eyes glistened with tears, part fear, part awe at the realization that they were about to meet their child. The intensity of the moment made all their recent trials fade into the background. Labor proved more grueling than Isabella had imagined. Every few minutes, she felt a searing rush that nearly took her voice away. Andrew dabbed her forehead with a cool cloth, murmuring soft words of reassurance. They locked gazes, unspoken gratitude passing between them for having confronted their deepest secrets. No matter the hurdles, they had to hold it together for the life that was about to begin. Hours stretched on, blurred by pain and anticipation. With each wave of contractions, Isabella found new strength in Andrew's presence. He pressed a steadying hand against her lower back, wincing whenever she let out a sharp cry. Flashing images of the bracelet and Evelyn Carter flickered through her mind like distant memories, reminders of just how much stress they had endured. Now, all that seemed insignificant compared to the raw immediacy of bringing a child into the world. At last, Isabella felt an overwhelming pressure, followed by a surge of relief as Dr. Caldwell urged her to push one final time. Andrew's voice cracked when he said, "You can do this. We're almost there." With a rush of effort, Isabella gave a guttural cry, then collapsed against the pillows as the sound of a robust newborn wail sliced through the air. Their daughter had arrived, pink-faced and furious, tears of life glistening on her tiny cheeks. Isabella couldn't stop sobbing from the flood of emotion. Andrew, overwhelmed, cut the umbilical cord under the gentle guidance of the medical team. The nurses quickly cleaned and swaddled the baby before handing the precious bundle to Isabella. She cradled her daughter, skin still flushed from exertion, but heart filled with wonder. In that moment, the magnitude of love rendered every other problem inconsequential. They named her Lily Grace Martin, a legacy that honored Andrew's late mother, Lily, and Isabella's grandmother, Grace. The name felt like a promise of hope, a testament to the resilience and love that had carried them through. As dawn broke through the hospital windows, painting the sterile white walls with soft pink light, Andrew and Isabella huddled close, marveling at the tiny fingers curled around Isabella's own. While Lily slept in the bassinet nearby, Andrew crossed the room to stare out at the glimmering city lights, now fading into a new morning. He could hardly believe how their lives had been nearly upended by betrayal, secrets, and the weight of a family legacy he hadn't fully understood. When Isabella joined him, resting her head against his shoulder, he whispered, "We came so close to losing everything, including each other." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes, but she smiled softly. "We survived it because we didn't let those secrets tear us apart. We're a family now." They fell quiet, each remembering the ordeal with Evelyn, the settlement that threatened to upend Andrew's reputation, the lies they had told themselves and each other. Returning that bracelet had become a symbol of letting go of dark pasts. Now, gazing at Lily Grace, they silently vowed she would never bear the burden of old sins. They would always choose honesty, even when it hurt. Andrew brushed a gentle kiss against Isabella's temple. "I swear, no more lies, no more hidden business or protecting you by shutting you out. Whatever life throws our way, we face it together." In that hushed hospital room, as the first rays of the sun lit up the horizon, Andrew and Isabella leaned on each other, their hearts brimming with hope. They had endured betrayal, heartbreak, and the specter of scandal. But now, with Lily dozing peacefully, everything else seemed to fade into insignificance. Their family was whole, woven with new threads of trust and a love that promised to shine brighter than any darkness from the past. In the weeks that followed, the hush money rumor never surfaced. The settlement remained confidential, known only to lawyers and the signatories. Andrew's business merger went through smoothly, with some minor bumps from the legal drama behind the scenes. Yet, public perception of Andrew remained unsullied, his philanthropic image intact. Sophia, oblivious to most of the turmoil, doted on baby Lily whenever she visited. She joked that Lily would grow up to inherit a legacy much freer from controversy than Andrew did. Meanwhile, Natalie visited often, playing honorary aunt and dropping off legal disclaimers about how to protect Lily's future. Evelyn Carter moved on to a new investigative piece, the Carter family finally had some restitution money that could help them rebuild. While not entirely satisfied, Evelyn seemed to have found enough closure to step back from her crusade. Through it all, Isabella and Andrew discovered that crisis could strengthen a marriage, provided both partners let honesty prevail. In a quieter moment, Isabella looked back at the last several months, the lonely nights of suspicion. The confrontation over the mysterious bracelet, the shocking revelation of Andrew's father's dark dealings, the final compromise for justice, and Lily's miraculous birth. She realized that the greatest test of love wasn't just how you handle triumphs, but how you navigate the shadows. And though they might face more trials ahead, Andrew and Isabella had forged a bond of steel, sealed by their precious daughter's arrival into the world. Thank you for journeying through the twists and turns of Isabella and Andrew Martin's story. From the moment that mysterious bracelet surfaced to the final confrontation with Evelyn Carter, we witnessed how secrets can fracture even the strongest bonds. Yet, in the end, love persevered, and a new life, baby Lily Grace, became a beacon of hope. Their struggle reminds us that trust is fragile but can be rebuilt when truth and forgiveness stand at the forefront. If this story captured your heart, please remember to hit the like button to show your support, share it with friends who crave a gripping tale, and subscribe to this channel for more stories that venture into life's most harrowing dilemmas and triumphant victories. Stay tuned, keep believing in the power of honesty and love, and we'll see you next time.